Hi, today we're going to be comparing the salaries of doctors to lawyers and engineers. I'm Manithan Ryan, a medical doctor with more than 20 years of experience in the healthcare industry. So join me as we look at these salaries. It's very difficult to compare a doctor to a lawyer to an engineer. But today I'm going to try to break this down into three aspects. One, we're going to look at a grading system, which is the Paterson Grading System. Secondly, we're going to look at the years it takes to complete and the years of training to eventually become a certified or professional engineer or a independent practitioner, be it dental or medical, or a attorney or advocate. So we're going to look at the specialist field between engineers and doctors, and finally, judges. So let's get to it. As I said, we're going to be discussing the lawyer, engineer, and doctor occupations. So under the lawyer category, we're looking at attorneys, advocates, magistrates, judges. To practice, you need to be admitted as an attorney or advocate. The engineering category is made up of industrial, mechanical, chemical, mining, agricultural, aeronautical, electrical, civil, and metallurgy. Under the doctor category, we're looking at both dental and medical doctors. To work in South Africa, you need to be registered under the Health Professional Council of South Africa to work as a dentist or a medical doctor. So, firstly, let's look at the number of years of study it takes to become a lawyer, engineer, or doctor. To become a lawyer and engineer, it's 4 years, and for a medical doctor and dentist, it's 5 and 6 years. You need 5 years training to become a dentist and 5 to 6 years as a medical doctor. The University of Free State has a 5 year program, whilst all the other universities in South Africa have a 6 year program to become a medical doctor. Once you've completed your undergrad training, you can become a candidate attorney. Here you work 2 years and thereafter you become admitted as an attorney. Once you've completed your 4 years of undergrad training as an engineer, you can take up a position as a candidate engineer. Here you can work between 3 and 5 years before you become a professional engineer. Dentists move on straight from their 5 year training to community service and start earning 666,090 Rand. The medical doctor, after completing his 5 or 6 years of training, then takes up an intern position and starts earning 501,489, and on their second year earns 504,246. As compared to the engineer, their starting salary being 618,732 rands, and the lawyer candidate attorney earns 271,823. The second year is 315,455 as compared to the candidate engineer, which is 628,017. Once you've completed your training as a candidate attorney, you can then be admitted as an attorney, your starting salary being 412,989. The candidate engineer still on training earns more, earning 637,431. So, how do we compare the lawyer, engineer, and doctor going forward? Because their job descriptions are different and the responsibilities are different. So, we use what is called the Paterson Grading System. This is a system used to compare job decision making across sectors or functional areas within an organization, and the remuneration is based on the function, responsibility, job content, and decision making authority. There are 6 bands in this job evaluation system and 28 sub bands. When comparing salaries, it's best to use this system. So now let's go on and look at the different categories. We've divided the lawyer field into advocates and attorneys. Once you've completed your 2 years as a candidate attorney, you can study further, work further, and become admitted as a advocate. So we're going to be looking at the senior assistant state attorney grade 1 and the family advocate grade 1 and state law advisor grade 1 to the engineer and dental or medical officer grade 1. So this is a D3 on the Paterson grading system. If we go on down, we'll see the magistrate on this. Under the attorneys is a E1 and under the Paterson grading system, and a clinical manager chief engineer falls under the E2 grading system. Finally, the senior clinical manager chief engineer grade B, specialist litigation and specialist litigation under the attorneys and advocate, all are E3 under the Paterson grading system. Just a point to note that this grading that I've done is based on my interpretation of the Paterson system and not an official Paterson grading system as done by work study experts and HR specialists. Let's look at the salaries now. We're comparing a D3 family advocate, senior assistant state attorney, engineer grade 1, and dental and medical officers. So the dental officer earns 797,109. That's after completing his or her community service. The medical officer earns 821,205 after completing 2 years of internship and then community service. The engineer has completed at minimum 3 years as a candidate engineer, earns 718,059. The senior state assistant attorney grade 1 after 4 years working as a attorney earns 699,292. The family advocate or state law advisor after 5 years starts earning 763,212. Then we go on to engineer grade B and comparing this to a dental and medical officer grade 2. The salary is quite a significant jump of 130,000 as compared to an engineer grade B. The dental and medical officer earns 1,089,693 compared to an engineer grade C earns 925,734. And their final salary on the last notch of each is 1,362 as compared to 1,090. If we compare this to the attorneys, it's 1,266 and 1,192. So a production grade engineer earns less on the grading system to the attorneys as well as the medical officers, although their starting salaries is quite high. Next, we move on to the family advocate and senior state lawyer versus the magistrate, and we're looking at the magistrate, the chief engineer, and the clinical manager. You can see they all earn around R1,000,000. The clinical manager earning the most, 1,173,900. And on the final notch, after completing their years of service, see the state attorneys and the magistrates. Well, the magistrate on progression to special grade chief magistrate earns 1,474, and this compares to the last notch of a clinical manager with 1,467. So the engineer once again earns less compared to the clinical manager and the magistrate and senior advocates. Finally, we look at the specialist litigation, chief engineer grade B, and a senior clinical manager. Senior clinical manager starting salary is 1,362,000, but on the final notch it's 1,628,000 as compared to a chief engineer specialist litigation. They all start around the 1,200,000 mark and all end around the 1,900,000, almost 2 million with the chief engineer. It takes many years to reach this, whilst this is a quicker progression of 11 years. This is more than 20 years to get to this position. Now let's look at the specialists, the dental and medical specialist versus the engineer specialist. If you look at a specialist grade 1, specialist grade 2, and specialist grade 3, compare this to a production grade engineer specialist, the production grade specialist earns more. They even earn more than a supervisory head of clinical unit, whose final notch is 2,066,000. The final notch of the specialist is 2,195,427. The head of department is a very senior position and very difficult to come by. Years of training as well as competition for this position makes it a difficult position to attain. But a head of clinical unit and a specialist and specialist positions are competitive, and it seems that being a specialist engineer pays off more than just being a general engineer if we compare. Finally, we look at the judges. The judges in South Africa earn relatively a good salary. This is to ensure that they have independence. They are independent contractors, so there wouldn't be any impartiality, there wouldn't be any influence. They do not contribute to pension as would all the other professionals. The magistrates also pay toward a pension, but judges get a salary for life. Basically, there is no pension contribution, and once they retire, they earn they continue earning a salary. If they pass on, their spouses earn two-thirds of their salary. They have car allowances, housing allowances, security, as opposed to the other professions, that is, the engineers and the medical profession. And comparing to the attorneys and advocates and magistrates, they also have to contribute to pension as opposed to the judges. So being a judge has a lot of perks. Now, if we compare this to a medical head of clinical unit, who's almost on the same grading as a judge as the High Court, if you're looking at Paterson Grading System, you'd see that, and the judge, deputy judge president, the salary is relatively the same. But if we have to compare to the head of clinical unit to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court of Appeal, judge, deputy chief justice, and the chief justice, hands down, judges earn more than medical doctors. Although the legal fraternity salary starts off with the lowest pay grade, the highest earners are the judges in South Africa. But the positions are extremely limited and the competition is very high to get there. As a specialist engineer, you can earn more than a production grade and supervisory unit specialist in the medical or dental field. The head of department post is higher in the medical field as there's no equivalent position for engineers, but posts are few and competition is high for this position. As a production grade engineer who's not specialized, the salary is not as high as the medical or the attorneys or advocates. But end of the day, the best option is to choose the job based on what interests you and not based on salaries. Thank you for joining me today, comparing the salaries of doctors to lawyers and engineers. If you like what you heard today, press the like button. If you want to hear more content of this nature, press the subscribe button. See you soon.